We certainly don't think that as a tech company we can parachute in and solve the world's problems, but we hope to provide some tech tools to the people that are trying to do that. A few trends that Google Ideas is really interested in harnessing over the coming year. The mapping one, as I mentioned, less emphasis on geographic mapping, so mapping in relation to geographies, but more on relationship mapping, so mapping in relation to people, which will be very powerful as we use data in a smart way to expose illicit networks. The second is mobile. And low tech, what do you do on low-end phones for the long tail of mobile users? Perhaps SMS, although our experience is that doesn't scale, but we're interested in voice and also applications offline on low-end phones. And the final is harnessing the trend, and the perfect that Tom and Alec will talk to this, of governments to get online. And naturally, some governments are doing this with a view to censorship, so getting ahead of their populations. Others, though, are using the online as a platform to engage their populations in a two-way dialogue. And that's certainly something that Google Ideas is keen to support.
I worked in number 10 Downing Street for the last ever paper and pen Prime Minister, Tony Blair, for the first email Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, and then latterly for the first ever iPad Prime Minister, David Cameron. And it's clear now that the delivery of government services across everything we do is being changed in ways that we civil servants can't really comprehend. Increasingly, it doesn't matter what one of our ministers says is our policy. It matters what Twitter or Google or Facebook says is our policy.
There's a massive shift in geopolitical power. Most people who talk about shifts in geopolitical power think about it in geographic terms. The presumed shift of power from west to east, or from the global north to the global south. Whether that is true or the degree to which that's true, I'll leave to other panels. But what I do know with near certainty is that in just about all 195 countries on planet Earth, there is a significant shift in geopolitical power. There's a shift in power from hierarchies to citizens and networks of citizens.
Social media doesn't always support our value system, in the West here, in the way that we think it should. And the last 2 weeks have shown that. Security, by being more open to the world around us, we diplomats are finding that we are also more vulnerable.
The interesting trend is in user innovation around anti-censorship software. So Chinese users are producing some of the most advanced software to get around proxies and circumvention tools. And they're being adopted around the world, I know in Iran too. So it'll be interesting to see how user innovation, to Tom's point about building an internet around the wall, around the internet, to see what users come up with.
The 21st century is a terrible time to be a control freak. Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg have very little control over what is actually published on those platforms. Eric Schmidt and Sergey and Larry at Google have very little to do with, what is going to be, a top search result on Google and other such things. So my response to this has actually been to say, to the maximum extent possible, let's work with non-American platforms. In China, let's use QQ, let's use Sina Weibo. In Brazil, let's use Orkutchi. In Russia, let's use Vkontakte, because it sort of takes the air out of the balloon of this accusation of these companies being tools of American foreign policy. If Europe creates a different framework for privacy policies than that in South America, Asia, North America, and other such things, the people who I know who run these companies do not have a problem significantly reducing their investments in Europe to near nothing as they seek to monetize Asia, South America, and North America, and other such things. So I think we have to have harmonized frameworks for privacy policy, and to the extent that we can get the market to work without a heavy hand for government, I think that that's better. The future of how the internet is governed and the future of how the internet works will largely be dictated, I believe, by 30 to 40 nations who are fence-sitting, who on the one hand value the openness of the internet as a platform for innovation and commercialization, but who have to make decisions about whether they are willing to concede its anarchic qualities. And so that, as a practical matter, is why I spend a lot of time in places like Brazil, Indonesia, India, and elsewhere, because as those countries become newly networked, the decisions made by the governing and the governed in those countries will determine what the internet in the future looks like.